First off, I'd like to say that overall, I've enjoyed my time so far with the beta. It offers a lot of content and is generally a good game to play. However, the gameplay, in my opinion, isn't as captivating, immersive, or as satisfying like newer titles such as Mortal Kombat Vs. In this video, I'm going to be talking about my thoughts on the beta as well as some feedback, and if you guys have access to the beta, I'd love to hear your thoughts so far as well. If you don't have the beta, there will be a pre-registration link for Shadowgun Legends in the link in the description. Without further ado, let's begin. So right off the bat, there are a few little things I noticed about the UI that I'd like to touch on. It's very cluttered in my opinion, and it's kind of hard to get adjusted to. There are lots of things on screen that you have to take some time to figure out on your own what they mean and how they work. The UI is essentially cluttered, and it's kind of hard to navigate, and it really took me around 2.5-ish hours before I could confidently navigate my way around the UI. But I do really like the consistency of the colors and the theme, and it does look aesthetically pleasing, I do have to say that. I don't want to talk too much about the story as I move on here from topic to topic, because the game is in very early beta, but there are some few things I'd like to say. First off, most of the missions feel more like errands rather than an actual mission to fight off the tournament, which I think is the main point of the story. That's another thing I was wondering about. There doesn't seem to be one main big picture or objective that is clearly stated. I understand that in the beginning they showed a clip of how the aliens invaded or whatever, but it's very aimless. Like, it's very, I don't know, it's not grounded enough for me to be believable. It's not grounded enough for the story to be believable. As an example, however, of these errand missions that I was talking about, there's a robot named Sarah, and she asks you to retrieve a guitar. Like, that's really almost condescending to the player, if I'm gonna be honest here. I feel as though as I'm running around doing missions aimlessly. Again, this could be as a result of the game being in early beta, and Madfinger doesn't want to spoil the game too much before the release, and that makes sense. But again, the single player isn't as captivating, as grounded as I'd like it to be. So, next up, I want to talk about the soundtrack. Yeah, it sounds as though the developers just kind of bought music off a generic royalty-free website instead of properly producing and composing the audio in-house. The winning track for Winning a Duel sounds absolutely generic, and the action music, like when you're engaging in a fight in single player, sounds like it was included for free with a cheap video editing software. Case in point, if Madfinger wants Shadowgun Legends to be a captivating experience, they need to step up their audio game. Now, next up, I want to talk about the controls and other things like that. Customization of controls and sensitivity is basically non-existent. The reload button is way too small, and there's no way you can enlarge it. My finger constantly misses the button, leading to most of my deaths in multiplayer and in single player, to be honest. I can't reload my gun, so I fiddle around with it, and then finally reload, but I'm dead by that point. The same can be said about the fire button. Now, I am on an iPhone 6s, so the buttons are even smaller, I believe, than they would be on an iPad, so that's another thing to take into consideration. If you're on iPad, you might have a different experience than I do on iPhone. I do want to talk about the weapon swapping. It's kind of unintuitive in my opinion. It just doesn't work like other games do, and it's kind of hard to get yourself adjusted to how the fact that you click that button to swap weapons instead of reload. So yeah, maybe a bit of customization would be extremely awesome, as well as just the ability to maybe change around how the UI works in general would be awesome as well. I know that's probably a lot to ask, but why not ask it? So yeah, the sensitivity I noticed is extremely inconsistent. Now, I don't know if this is due to some sort of aim assist or something like that, but it feels as though the smoothing of the camera is also very inconsistent. It seems impossible for me to ever get used to controlling my aim in this game. Now, I've noticed this with newer games as well, such as Mortal Kombat Vs. I find myself not being able to get used to the sensitivity at all, so I don't fault it too much for that. I just wish that they would kind of get, at least the most raw sensitivity input as possible. So last but certainly not least, I want to talk about the multiplayer aspect of Shadowgun Legends. Now, before I go any further, I would just like to say that as a result of not too many players having access to the beta, I couldn't get into as many games as I'd like to. So right out of the gate, I have experienced some extreme lag in multiplayer. Dying around corners, dying without explanation. I'm talking some points in the game where I would die aimlessly, or not aimlessly, but I would just die. And it would say that the other person killed me, but I'd be on the other side of the map for them. and yeah, things like that. Again, I understand that it's in beta. I just want to report these issues like that, and I do understand that it is a bit excessive in terms of my complaining, but it really is that bad in my opinion. So yeah, duels, awesome idea, terrible execution. The map is absolutely not well designed for duels. Either someone gets the spawn closest to the special weapon chest and dominates the entire match, or both of the two players are too scared to come out of their camping spot and one person wins as a result of only like 1 or 2 kills. Duels is absolutely terrible. It's more luck than it is skill. Spawns are atrocious. I am not happy with duels in my opinion. Like the concept is amazing and I really like how they included it. Most games these days don't have a 1v1 or a 2v2 mode. Again, this is 1v1 not 2v2, but you get my point. There is no 1v1 in a lot of other games today, and I like how they added it. I just think it needs a lot more work for it to actually be polished and fun to play. So I don't really have too much to say about Ascendancy, the 4v4 kill confirmed mode. It's fun, chaotic, fairly well balanced. I do think the map is a bit too small for this game mode, but really other than that, it's pretty fun. Again, I have only really gotten into, I believe it was around 3 of these matches, so I didn't know what I was doing for the first 2. No one else knew what they were doing, so all I can really say is that it's chaotic, it's fun, and I haven't had too many issues with it other than the lag that I mentioned earlier. So overall, Shadowgun Legends has a ton of potential, and if Madfinger can step up their audio game, improve multiplayer, and spice up the campaign missions a little more, then I think Shadowgun Legends could compete with other true legends, such as Nova 3. Thanks for watching, guys.